Hey YouTube, welcome back to UniX TCG, and for today's video we're going to do an updated tier list now that even more testing has gone down. Before I was doing a lot of testing for Sat 5, but now I've revisited other decks, I've changed other builds, and I've really got even more insight, I think, to this. And now that regionals are just but a month away, I think it's the perfect time to drop a new tier list, get your thoughts on it, and really kind of hash it out. That being said, there will be a companion piece to this on the Patreon, so if you guys want an even deeper introspective look after this is all said and done, that's the place to go. And one special shout out for getting the second channel over 1,000 subscribers. I couldn't have done it without you guys that helped from here, and it's meant a lot to me. So with that being said, if you like the video, and if you love the video, maybe even think about joining the UniX fam today, checking out all we have to do in Universe X. And yeah, let's get into the content. Okay, so to look at these tiers real quick, we've got top regional picks, and these are the decks that I think really only have maybe one uphill matchup or one uphill kind of dynamic they have to work on, and they could at least win those matchups. It's not like an auto loss due to you faced a certain color or a certain deck per se. And then even within that, text can be a part of that. Dark horses are very powerful decks, but we'll have to see the right matchups, in my opinion, in order to thrive correctly. Then you've got competitive, and a lot of the decks are actually going to fall into this category. They can do well. I just wouldn't necessarily bank on getting higher than like maybe an X3 to X2 with them, because they do have some glaring issues that can be exploited by quite a few decks in the format. Then you have the remember you paid to be here tier. This is a tier that's returning. A lot of you guys love this tier, you memeing on it, but it's going to be here again. And then you got the big oof homie tier, which is generally gonna just house the decks that you should not have stepped outside of the house with. Let's be real. So let's go through here. First, we got starter coup. Red is very interesting in the fact that I think that very few red decks have the ability to not only aggress but also close out game in a timely fashion. And when you can't do either, you get stuck in this weird kind of loop where you start off very strong and then your opponent stabilizes against you and you just don't look good anymore. Most red decks will fall into this category because they will have a just hard time closing out game. Not to say most red decks, but a chunk of the red decks will kind of fall into this section. Realistically, you just kind of got to dodge a fair amount, but like red as a whole, I think that if you're not running Daima, then your options start to get limited. Not saying there aren't non-Daima decks that can win when it comes to red, and we're gonna get into those, but yeah, this is just not really where you want to be. Speaking of big oof, we're also gonna put that here. That is where, you know, this U7 Goku leader is going to be. He is exactly what I talked about. He can press actually pretty well. You can press pretty well with this leader, but then your opponent will undoubtedly stabilize on you, and you're not cheating out anything in this deck. So you're playing hard aggro, you're tapping 2, you're tapping 3, you're tapping 1 maybe for a Frieza, and it's not really gonna get to the places that you want it to get, and that's why it stays here. Beerus, we're gonna put Beerus in competitive. I don't think you're going to win a regional here. I don't even think you're gonna top 8, maybe top 16 a regional here, because one, you still have the ability to be starved. If you run too many self-awakeners, you might awaken, but then all of your cards are low impact for the most part. This leader is capable of just not seeing enough awakeners and potentially being stuck while your hand dwindles and your opponent stabilizes. It has problems with blue, it has problems with late game green, it has problems with a lot of stuff. So this is there. It still has some plays, and there are some unique board states that this deck will get through that other decks will not. There are some decks that are maybe more prone to critical pressure, like maybe Nameku, that would very much so hurt from a deck like this being in the format. However, pound for pound, you're probably going to run into more matchups that you don't really enjoy than matchups that you will. Top Coup is another red deck in the big oof. I don't say oof, but big oof homie category. After, you know, losing Roshi, losing Ribrianne, and having Kefla put down to 1, this guy is, he's not cheating at the same speed that he used to. He's not the value machine that he used to be, and that is just kind of a real big issue there. Now, Jiren, right? I'm going to put Jiren in Dark Horse. Why do you ask this? Because Jiren is a deck that, because of its 25k body and its you know, 4k or 4 cost Jiren SR, you actually do put yourself in a position where you could have some very, very good matchups versus Nameku, which is a very popular deck. Very good matchups with a lot of the yellow decks, because while Frieza SCR does put in mad work, Frieza SCR also is to a degree slow. Like if your opponent launches or puts up if your opponent puts up 2 Jiren SRs before you can, like if your opponent plays a Jiren SR and you play a Frieza and you're not playing Janemba, you can't remove it that turn. And if they double up on you, then yeah, you can remove one and the other one's still there, and that gives them chances to set up. There's a lot of things that can happen here. Janemba can kind of handle it easily to a degree, but you're still being met with a 25k body, and Jiren doesn't have to sit behind the 4-drop. So you're kind of at a space where if Vegeta just happened to see a bunch of yellow and, you know, a bunch of green and then maybe just one blue deck, Jiren may still be an X1 deck, an X2 deck, and that's enough for a winning record. Now, I'm going to put Daimaku in top regional pick, the starter Daimaku in top regional pick. And the reason why I'm putting this here is because realistically, if you do not see blue, you will likely out control most of the game. This deck is adept at clearing 30Ks, and like it has a lot of good range, a lot of powers at the 30K mark in this late game and at its current format. And you have the ability to really get in there and remove the board as it comes, peck down your opponent. And the best part about this deck right now is that Glorio is kind of all the defense you'll need. Glorio, the occasional poke and draw with the 25k Goku, and you'll be able to use more of a defensive core for red, much like Jiren, running Whis, Fuwas, being able to constantly manipulate the board, and you still have access to its over. Not exactly as easily as Daimaku 2 does, but you still have access to its over. I'm going to put UI Goku in competitive. UI Goku actually can do a lot of crazy things. Its matchup versus Nameku is hilarious because you can always match the secret rare and then combo out of it. So it's pretty much incredibly hard to hit this guy with a double strike in Nameku. You also have the ability to play a very tanky red game, which makes it inherently pretty good against certain decks. But there are a lot of go wide decks. Daimaku goes extremely wide against this deck, Daimaku 2 at least. You have like decks like Satan City, where if UI Goku doesn't see enough of its Lobby removal, can kind of stack up on it. You have all the countless yellow decks that are going, like, that have the ability to go pretty wide. This is going to be a problem. Even androids can set up on this leader pretty bad. So that's going to be just why this guy's in here. He has more than enough bad matchups to kind of stun him from in here. You guys should probably know my opinion on this already. I think this is one of the best tempo decks in the game. You have a little bit of everything. You have low to the ground aggression. You got an excellent finisher in Glorio. You got board clearers in the form of its over, and you basically trade some of the utility and minus power of you know, starter Daimaku for raw power. And I've been playing this game, or I'm playing with this leader a lot. He's probably the leader I've tested the absolute most because I enjoy it so much. And I can tell you, like, he has 50-50s almost across the board. Turtle blue can be harder, but whenever people try to come out of the gates with a blue deck that's not straight turtle, like some people play more aggressive Vegeta, some people play more aggressive Vegito, this deck is not having that problem. And even with decks that go the distance, most decks, by the time you get, if you live to 8 energy, double Gloria will shut most decks down by that stage of the game. It just does not matter. Sweeping P-Loss off the board with things like it's over. It's just, you have a lot of reach with this deck, and I think it's one of the better decks in the format. Now, moving over to blue, I'm going to put Vegeta over here, right? Vegeta is, I'm not going to say, so this is the very strange part. Vegeta, I'm putting him in Dark Horse because Vegeta is still a typical blue deck, and a typical blue deck wants to be a little turtle-ish. He relies on his big, like, you know, 35k push towards the end of the game, but he's not kind of the same deck that he used to be, in the sense that you need to tech specifically to work around black now. Black will out advantage your 35k swing by drawing an insane amount of cards, locking down your dual attackers with power bros, all sorts of weird stuff. He already has, like, and he's always kind of had a really bad matchup versus certain green decks. Nameku will generally heal the one assured damage you're putting out a turn, and then be able to crack back with massive massive damage. You could get burned down, particularly by certain yellow decks such as like Majin Buu, such as Janemba. There's a lot of like little things this guy kind of gets under, or that can really hurt this guy, and even decks that go like super wide with the Ginyu pack kind of get under him sometimes. So this is kind of just like there. Blue is a strong color in general right now, but Vegeta itself, like, there are just certain things that it cannot access because they decided to pivot the feeling of blue, essentially. Now, I'm not saying this is a bad deck. I'm saying that, once again, I could see anybody playing Vegeta and getting an X2 finish. I can see that. I can see a couple of them squeaking through. He's still a solid leader. There's just going to be some differences that we're going to talk about soon. Trunks is going to be in competitive. Why? Because blue, generic blue right now as a whole is strong. You can't really get out of that. Blue right here is just kind of like, they have a lot of good top end, they have a lot of good utility cards, they have the peel-off loops. So yeah, you just really can't get away from the utility of blue. We're gonna put this here. Remember, you paid to be here. There are some dumb, stupid combos involving Goku Black. I actually was just at locals, and one of my homies was playing in a match in the finals for our anniversary event, and he basically, on 8 energy in blue, played Goku Black. Now, he wasn't playing Goku Black as a leader, but he played Goku Black, and he attacked with Goku Black. He dropped the 4-cost rare Vegito, and his opponent, who was playing Gogeta, could not use ultimate sparking, because if he used ultimate sparking on the Vegito, the Vegito would just be popped for the 6-cost Vegito in the grave. And he just like popped that off and just kept on going, like kept it a buck. And that was just disgusting. Like, attacking with a Goku Black to then drop a 2-cost Vegito to then pop it and go for the 6-cost. That's 3 40k swings right there, for and counting the leader that he was using. Yeah, so that's going to be a little hint to what we're getting to later. But yeah, there are some very, very, very good plays here, but you can run Goku Black 6 in any blue deck as a top end. You don't need to cheat it out, and this makes your blue deck way more linear than need be. Can he get out combos earlier? Yes, he can, but are you necessarily like winning all your matches just because you chose his leader? Heck no. Zamasu, straight to the top here. Straight to the top. Zamasu is a very, very defensive leader, very, very strong, can wall all sorts of 20k spam, makes it hard. Like, this is the deck, this is the blue deck that I fear most with Daimaku. This is the blue deck that can shut out Janemba depending on the way it goes. This blue deck can even hurt green decks because sometimes you just outlast their ability and you fight them in the late game, where you're not as powerful, but you definitely have like a fair amount of utility to work with. So Zamasu is very, very good, and I think that right now people are thinking that he's not in the format because you don't see him on ladder, but you don't see him on ladder because, you know, nobody's trying to spend 40 minutes and then finding out if they're going to win or lose. So Zamasu is something you should definitely be on the lookout for. Now, there will be some decks that really do interact badly with it, and I mean badly for Zamasu, but they're going to be talked about later. Satan City, that's going right up here as well. Satan City is a very, very good deck, a lot of utility, a lot of just like actions per turn that really combo play your way to victory. The only thing about Halo Coop that a lot of people just don't seem to understand, whether you have the glaze goggles on or something, is that Halo Coop is one of those decks where you can either beat it based on how your deck is constructed, or you cannot. If you just don't have low beat removal, sometimes recyclable, or on attack, if you don't have ways to constantly keep their board managed, they will rack up a level of advantage that you just can't even fathom when it happens. You're just sitting there like, wow, I cannot believe this guy is just looping and looping and drawing and looping and looping and drawing and swinging heavy. Yeah, that's because you can't get rid of their field. And not every deck can get rid of that. Like, for instance, Daima Goku can really get into high school, making sure it never has the board for more than the turn it's been played, and that can get very intensive on Goku's like, you know, just like Satan City or Halo Ku's ability to keep a board. However, this Daima may only really have a couple of minusing effects, and then it's overs to rely on. So until you get to the secret rare, which may be too late by the time they got their advantage, this may be a harder part for you to kind of battle on. So that's what I mean. Your deck is either equipped to touch this or not. You can have a Jiren deck that can't hold a candle to Halo Ku. You can also have a Jiren deck that plays 3 to 4 Whis and has no problem mincing up the field that this deck puts out. So yeah, but other than that, it can be fairly aggressive. Videl loops with Sword of Hope can really or Final Hope Slash can really get into green as well, kind of helping eliminate that weakness. Has good black matchups. Black got a little stronger this set, but having access to Great Sandman allows you to really just rip through the protection of Trunks and then start getting at the field. So realistically, yeah, Halo Ku is a very strong deck. I don't think we need to even worry about this. Tamagami 2 is or Tamagami 2 or Tamagami 1, whatever the card is, a very cool option, but this deck just isn't here yet. There's blue decks that just generically do better things. Gohan is going to go into the Remember You Paid to Be Here. He literally got loads better this set because they added in so much graveyard threshold cards, but they're all just better utilized by Vegito. And Vegito, I'm going to just put at the top of Dark Horse. Why? Because Vegito has great power at the exchange for great variance. Like, there are just certain games where you feel like you have just crushed your opponent. There are certain games where, like, I was playing a couple fun rounds of Vegito today before the anniversary event, and there was like a game where I starved out Ginyu and then just like took control in the late game. There was another game where I played against Namaku, and my first milled 2 out of my 3 sickles. And at this point, my opponent understood that I had to either hard draw another sickle after milling 2 out of what is likely 3, or I had to get all the way from 2 to 5 energy so I could Vegeta a sickle back and then play another sickle. In this time, he established 2 of the promo Gokus and started beating the tar out of me, and it was just a really hard, like, I managed to stabilize at like 3-ish life and really try to get rid of the field. I kept Galactic Donutting the secret rare. I did pull it out, but high key, that was just so frustrating seeing those sickles hit the drop immediately, and him knowing that he was just free to play out cards until I got the sickle, could play the Vegeta on 5 energy. And that's, even then, it's kind of wild because he knows that if he can set up around that, then when I get to my 5 energy, my best thing is to get a sickle back and start removing things. And just be like, well, okay, well, whatever else is on the field is on the field. Yeah, no. It was not a good feeling at all. So, yeah, that's just one of his things. Extreme amounts of power. But no 2 games are really alike, and sometimes RNG can just blast you. People talk about Savior of the World, and Savior is a very good card, but the fact of the matter is, 30k or 15k is not 20k. The math is different. It's kind of an IQ check. The moment you can see 3 super combos milled, but if you know you're attacking a Vegito player, you need to start thinking about whether your 30ks cannot be 30ks anymore. They need to be 35ks to do that same thing in case that, you know, Savior of the World is there. Because at the end of the day, what Blue thrives on is being able to use 1 card to get out of a swing that you invested in. You swung for 30, whether it be a boss card or you put 10 on, cool, I'm Gallic Gunning and I kept the same hand, but I got out of your stuff. That is what they thrive on. So when you swing for 30 and when Savior's involved, you're really just hurting yourself, and that is not where you want to be. So yeah, that's where he is. Broly, well, I'm putting this in Remember You Paid to Be Here tier. He has some really funny shenanigans with all the 2 life cards, but like, without your healing, he just really gets in a funny part. And if you ever see Broly, don't assume that your opponent is just playing a starter deck. Just beat them viciously, and they will likely just end up folding because the deck is like memeable. Like, honestly, it's memeable. This is also this guy I really want to put here in the Remember You Paid to Be Here tier, but I don't even think he's got legs like that. So he's going to be at the top of Big Foamy. Like, he's literally, most green decks are going to be in a bad way because the 2 green decks that are on the top are doing some vicious things. Speaking of which, we're going to have androids. But androids aren't going up here like most of you guys think. Androids are going down here. And do you know why? It is because androids have still some of the strongest, if not the strongest, late game potential out of any deck in the entire game. However, just on this list alone, to succeed with an android deck, you gotta dodge starter Daimaku. You gotta really dodge this time. I will tell you, I faced androids today at my anniversary event. All I had to do was turn card sideways, not even think. I used a super combo to save a freaking 20k because I was just like, nah, this attack is more important than the super combo. The best you'll be able to do is cast Broly, pop something, swing twice, and then I'll kill you the following turn. No, it's horrible. So you have to dodge these two decks. You have to dodge Satan City for the most part. Heck, you might even need to dodge Vegito. This deck, you gotta dodge Jiren if you're not playing Warm Greetings anymore. You gotta dodge plenty of decks for androids to get to the late game they're so vaunted on. The turtle mode is so good, but a lot of decks are able to just start going super wide now, and we're not even done putting half of them on the screen. Like, you have to dodge other green decks. You gotta dodge Nameku. You gotta dodge Janemba. You gotta dodge Super Boo. You gotta dodge, like, nah, baby. Like, this deck has not changed in quite some time, but the format around it is getting stronger, is getting faster, and this is one of the punchiest sets we've had in a long time. Cell, we're gonna put Cell in the Remember You Paid to Be Here tier. When Cell gets its loop going, it is one of the strongest decks in the game when it comes to the healing, the destroying, things like that. But you gotta remember, your field card can be Warm Greeting, your field card can be Vegito bounced, and you're also a green deck, so you need to avoid all the things I just said androids need to avoid. Yeah, it's just, that's just not a good look. Piccolo, big oomph homie tier. If this leader could consistently get to 8 energy every game, then you'd probably be one of the best leaders in the deck, but unfortunately it can't, and it's full of extras, so yeah. Over here at the Remember You Paid to Be Here tier, I think this deck actually got a fair amount better with some of the support that you can try to hodgepodge together with the new green cards, but since all of them are Sand and Namek Saga, you can't cheat them out, meaning this guy still is like here and can do some fun things, but he's still kind of handicapped, and that's super unfortunate. Now, going up into this tier, this is the only green tier, or the green deck I'm going to put in top regional pick, because realistically, this deck has 50-50s against everything but wide yellow strategies. Wide yellow strategies, especially when you throw a Vegeta 3-drop in the mix just to cap off the field, can really just put this guy in a world of hurt where it doesn't matter that you're healing. They beat the bricks out of you, and then while you still have 4 energy, they're beating the cards out of your hand like Sonic coins out of Sonic himself after he hits a spike ball. This is just not the move. But if you're not playing against go wide yellow strategies, he's got 50-50s against pretty much everything here. Sometimes if you can nail the crit rate with Destructive Disc, he can tear Zamasu apart. Zamasu isn't dealing with like some 35k crits like happening too many times, and you start looping things, you start getting cards back. It could just be very, very detrimental living. He tears apart androids. Depending on the text you play, he's not going to be bad into Jiren. He just, yeah, he's got 50-50s across most of this board, if not better, depending on the matchup. Frieza, I'm going to put here in competitive because Frieza just got a lot of tools to work with, has a really gimmicky kind of like ladder chain. Unfortunately, though, at the end of the day, its top end is just the 5-cost Mecha Frieza into the like 5-cost or 4-cost King Cold into the secret rare, and after that top end happens, you don't really have much to go off of. Frieza's one of those decks where it's not really doing too much in the first couple turns, and a lot of the cards it's cheating into play are easily removable outside of the barrier. Now, I will say Frieza is probably one of the only decks where late game, if you don't finish the game late enough or early enough, Frieza can just overwhelm. There's just going to be a point in the game where they're untapping 2 barrier cards, removing 2 of your cards, swinging, and still having like yellow shenanigans around it, and that is going to be very oppressive. But there's going to be a lot of times where Frieza is just not doing as much as a lot of these decks in the early game and still offering removable stuff. Dark Horse, I'm going to put this here. Ginyu is definitely a deck where if you avoid, like with Ginyu, right? If you avoid Daimaku 1, Daimaku 2, Jiren, Zamasu, you might actually just body a tournament or go X1. You got to dodge some matches, but realistically, you're dodging red removal, red widespread removal. You're dodging 25k leaders, and sometimes you're dodging Satan City because sometimes they can put up a lot of 10ks, and if they find their peel-offs early, you're cooked on trying to break through their defenses. But this is just one of those decks where you can go so freaking wide, it's not funny. And Satan City sometimes doesn't like really go hard, and it's like wide board removal, so sometimes you can even kind of go around that. But this is here because you can actually just go through a tournament. Like if Ginyu sees androids, they're smoked. If Ginyu sees like Vegito or any like 20k base blue leader, you can probably get some real hits in as long as you play smart about your awakening. So realistically, I do think that like this is a dark horse. You could easily get a top with it top 32 or something like that. You only need to see one of these aforementioned matchups like 2 times before you get played out. Cooler is definitely going to remember you paid to be here tier. He's a crit leader, so all the things I said about Beerus pretty much follow up on it. You can be starved, you can draw out of sequence, you can see your gas and not your awakeners, and then on top of that, if you are starved, once you do awaken, to use your effect you have to start discarding cards, which is abysmal, and then you just end up with some 3-card hand that people just walk all over and it's horrible. I'm going to put Vegeta in Dark Horse, only because set 2 Vegeta has the ability to protect its cards very well from green and potentially red destruction in the case of Daimaku 2. Not much red destruction in the case of Daimaku 1, who focuses more on minusing than blowing up. He can have a very good matchup against Black, where he's tapping things down, getting out of these 30k swings very easily, locking things down. I think that is something to be said. He has polarizing matchups. There are some matchups that he's very good into, some matchups that he's not as good into, and that's going to be a whole thing. But he can get caught lacking pretty hard. I just know that, you know, if you're playing this Vegeta and you're seeing like a fair amount of, you know, these guys, especially the fact that a lot of times if you're at 3 life, Nameku has to try to get you down to 2 to bust you out. And with that case, you're always able to do something like Hellwreck Sasha and tap their secret rare after blocking the attack that was supposed to put you down to 3 or to 2. So this has a lot of good matchups in the format. And then courtesy of the homie Dolan at locals, I'm gonna put Majin Buu in competitive. A lot of people don't kind of get this as a leader. I don't really like this leader as much, but it has unique interactions that a lot of people aren't really ready for. For instance, Yellow is able to tap down 2 things with Goku, right? But at the same time, if you have Spaceship on board, you can tap 2 things down with Goku and then put a 20k on board that'll tap down something else, you know? You can play a Majin Vegeta and Spaceship will lock down something for your opponent's following turn, then you can get your swings off while popping something 3 or less. This has more legs than you would think with Spaceship and the general yellow good stuff, but you're also able to use cards like Babidi, which is very, very strong when you're talking about, I think you can use cards like Babidi? Give me a second. Hold up. Did I goof up? The point is, this card is actually very, very, very good. In terms of what you can do for yellow, right? What you can do for yellow, but also at the same time, let's see. I'm actually looking this up right now. I need to make sure that we can actually use. Man, it's not showing me the right Babidi. I'm looking for the Babidi from Fusion World. Hold up. I know this is like funny that I'm doing this in the middle, but I wanted to double check what I was saying before I go completely off of it. So looking at this Babidi card, bro, all it wants to do is talk about the on play. I'm not looking for the barrier. That is not what we're here for. I'm looking for the Babidi that, oh wait, is this it? If your leader has Majin special traits, yeah. So you can use the Babidi card and really start kind of tearing apart your opponent's hand as well. So you can kind of piggyback on the Super Buu like mechanics. Now speaking of Super Buu, we're going to go up here. This deck is very, very good. There's a couple of reasons why I'm going to put it here, and that is because a lot of people don't realize that the Majin Doo card and Ku card, Majin Doo and Ku, is only on the client right now. We don't get those until our Ultimate Battle 4s. On top of that, there's a lot of decks that this doesn't see in the client because those decks take too long to play. Nobody's trying to play Zamasu on the client, and Zamasu is a massive issue for this Buu deck. You're a 25k leader that can recycle combo power and is meant to go the long game with decent removal that pairs up well against yellow. Like, this deck doesn't have the best time with Zamasu. You also might not have the best time versus decks like Yellow Vegeta. Jiren, you can kind of overpower Jiren. Like, there are a good amount of, like, you could do that last format, but like against these 2 like Daimas, you also often are met with cards that can answer your board fairly easily while they're putting pressure on you. And when you're spewing out cards to aggress and then spewing out cards to defend yourself, you're pretty much left with no hand very quickly. So this card is, this leader is good, this deck is good. I just think that a lot of people might be overestimating how good it is because of its presence on the ladder, when its presence on the ladder is really just a result of people wanting fast games to move up the ladder to get those prizes. Janemba. We are going to put Janemba in Dark Horse as well. Janemba can do a great many things. Janemba can play a very aggressive build. Janemba can play a more mid-range build. Janemba can even play a kind of control-ish build. The thing is, you have to figure out what your local meta is looking like, or what the meta of the region is looking like. When you go to a regional, you have to make sure you're locked into what's good. For instance, I'm gonna say right here, going into March, if trends don't change, Janemba might be a fine pick, because some of the most played decks are Namaku and Bootanks and Jiren on the ladder. When you get up to high elo, you find a lot of those on the ladder. Why? Because Bootanks is one of the fastest decks in the game and can get those games done really quickly. You know what counters this deck a fair amount? Jiren. So Jiren is finding more and more of a presence in here, feeding off of these. And then Jiren also feeds off a lot of other things in the matchup too. You know what also is good? Namaku. You know what also feeds off of Namaku in most cases? Jiren. So you're seeing this trifecta here. A lot of black, but also a lot of Jiren, Namaku, and Super Boo. But like, Janemba would be good into those decks. Janemba can aggress fast enough to really lay the hurt on this guy, playing out cards faster than they can destroy them. Janemba can also play Frieza and use its effect on the same turn, effectively stopping Jiren from gatekeeping you from using your yellow cards. And then you also have Janemba being able to play fairly well tit for tat against a deck like Majin Buu. So Janemba legitimately could be a very good pick in March, if March's like meta stayed like the current ladder meta is, or if enough people modeled their predictions off of the ladder meta. But you could also come in and guess wrong and get gobstopped. You can come in with some aggro expecting so much Namaku because it just won Eggman's event and it's popular on the ladder, and you can come in with your 20k spam with a little bit of a top end and then just meet nothing but Zamasus and Jirens and Daimakus and just get mogged. Or, you know, you could go a little too late game and you could have a great handle on, you know, some of these red decks while you're battling some of these blue decks like Vegito and stuff. But then you could come up against a real late game deck like Zamasu and just get punished by their intense levels of control and late game presence. There's just a lot that can go wrong here. Bardock, competitive. All black pretty much operates on the same level, give or take. But yeah, Bardock still has +5, not as good as it used to be. We run a lot more 10Ks than we used to in previous sets, but still pretty good. They didn't really give Bardock's crew any good cards, so that kind of sucks a whole bag too. And then on top of that, you are really just kind of looking at a deck that hasn't really changed much, but gained a couple tools in the form of, you know, Super Saiyan 3 Goku and stuff like that. But it still can be competitive. Black is a good snowball color. You get Trunks into Super Saiyan 4 Goku and you need to answer that, or else another Super Saiyan Goku can land, or a 5-drop Goku, and then you're going to be sitting there watching them just draw their entire deck throughout the course of the game. We're putting this in here as well because these decks will pretty much run almost the same cards minus a couple Bardock's crew, maybe if you want that effect, versus minus running some GT cards that kind of make combo power out of nowhere. We're putting Baby in competitive. A lot of people aren't playing Baby, but Baby is just so good. Baby is still just a menace. No matter how you play it. It's got a new Self-Awakener, so the aggro deck can get online even faster, but it's also got a new Self-Awakener that draws, so the mid-range will love it. It's just, this deck is really good. I just think that people are done playing Baby after playing it so much last set, but you should not sleep on it, and you should find your local Baby player and make sure you get some reps in against it before you go out to a tournament. And then you have Gogeta. I'm going to put Gogeta over here in Dark Horse. Gogeta just has everything that black wants to high roll on. Gogeta is capable of high rolling on at hard. Whether it is, you know, maintaining the energy marker while you have a Trunks on board with your entire field, whether it's, you know, just playing like some of the best plays of black, this guy can just be like, what if you do it again? Like, if you have a Trunks, 2 Super Saiyan 4 Gokus, or a Super Saiyan 4 Goku and a, you know, Super Saiyan 3 Goku on board, if you don't need to add anything else onto your board to pressure your opponent, why not just get rid of their whole board? Why not just hit them with the 10 times Kamehameha, then attack with a Super Saiyan 4 Goku for 30, then play Hercule, get the 10 times Kamehameha back, use it again, then activate Gogeta's effect to get your energy marker back, then do whatever you need to do with your last energy marker or with your last 2-3 energy, and then just pass. You draw at the end of the turn, you wipe their entire board, you know, you got in some 30k pokes. There's just a lot you can do with this leader. However, This, like, when Gogeta is not high rolling, he's subpar compared to every other black leader. When Gogeta is high rolling, he is just top of the line, if not just tied with baby Vegeta in terms of how high his ceiling goes. Gogeta has a very high ceiling, but often feels like a vanilla leader, and for some reason Bandai thought he was too good to draw when he flipped, so there's that too. But yeah, this is my regional tier list going into March based off of further testing. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I am excited to see your takes on this. And also let me know if you're going to the regionals too. Like I said, I'm going to both of them. I'm super excited to be able to jam in set 5 in the first regionals and really just put my money where my mouth is and just show you guys that I'm still practicing. I'm still in there. Had a good regional season last go. Bubbled out of top 16 going into Nat. So yeah, like I just really want a chance to get out there and show you guys that the channel is worth watching. You know, the insight is worth listening to. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys for just being a part of this channel, for supporting it. You guys have been lovely lately. I've been a little bit busy, so I've been up behind on getting to all the comments, but I promise you guys I'm still cooking, and I will see you guys in the next video.